Fastpitch TV show. We're bringing you more interviews, more videos, and more product reviews than anyone else on the planet. Sit back and get ready. Here's the Fastpitch TV show.
Hello, I'm your host, Gary Leland, and this is the Fastpitch TV show. Now, if you've never been to my website, please take a moment and go to fastpitch.tv. Now, that's the home of the Fastpitch TV network and the place to find all my softball videos and all my softball blogs. It's the largest network for free softball videos and blogs that there is on the internet. Fastpitch softball, that is. Now, I'm always adding something all the time, so please, after you finish watching this show, go and take a look. I also want to tell you about some great news about my magazine. If you're not familiar with the Fastpitch Softball magazine, well, it's now available on the iPhone, the iPod Touch, and the iPad. And that's really too cool. I'm really pumped about this. To see the magazine, you just go to the App Store on your iPhone, your iPod Touch, or your iPad and search softball, and it should come up as one of your top choices. And if you already subscribe on your iPad, well, now you are automatically subscribed on your other Apple devices too. Okay, so you just need to go add to app. New issues come out the first week of every month, and we have a great group of writers like Olympians Kat Osterman, Natasha Watley, and many, many more. You really need to visit fastpitchmagazine.com today. This is a great coaching tool. You are going to love it, I promise you. Now this week, I bring you another session from Softballcon in Louisville, Kentucky. If you're not familiar with Softballcon, well, you probably won't watch this show if you're not, but you should really check out their website, softballcon.net. It's a great clinic that's held in Louisville, Kentucky every January. Now this week we have part one of a clinic by David Williams, the head coach of Moorehead State University. And today's clinic is titled, Keep Your Head in the Game. Let's watch it now.
It's all yours, bud.
All right, sorry for the delay. I'm David Williams. I'm the head coach at Moorehead State. Today, we're going to talk about keeping your head in the game, important in-game coaching tactics. And actually, when I got this topic, I sat down to think about a lot of this stuff, and it really kind of starts before you even get to the game. It starts before the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a few things today. Some of it, things you're going to think about. Some of it would be things that you might not think about it. But really what you want to try to do is make in-game adjustments and then think a couple steps ahead so that you know what you're going to do if certain situations happen. So, we'll get going here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about pregame. Now, pregame. There's a couple things we want to do. Now, I realize sometimes you may be very limited with your lineup, and there's certain people that have to play certain spots. Maybe there's just no other option. It happens. But the first thing you want to do is you want to adjust your lineup. Adjusting your lineup defensively or offensively, depending on who you're playing. Now, depending on what kind of lineup we might see, if it is a team that has a lot of slappers, a team that has a lot of speed, we might want to adjust our infield a little bit to help take that away. So we may play somebody else at third base that has a better chance of getting the ball quickly, gathering it quickly, and getting the out. We may play a stronger catcher because they may have a better chance of taking away the stolen base threat. There's a lot of different things we can do. We may play quicker outfield. We may do a lot of different things. We may adjust how we play certain people. So, for example, if we have a really dominant pitcher, throws really hard, everybody's really, really late on her, we might be able to get away with putting a weaker outfielder in left field and just to get a better bat in the lineup. Because majority of the times you're going to see nothing but righties. So if we have someone that throws harder, the offense isn't going to get around it as quick. So obviously they're probably going to go opposite field, hit the ball to right field a little bit more. So we can get away with playing that weaker outfielder in left. Same thing on the defensive end. Maybe we could play a weaker third baseman, get a better bat in the lineup. There's a whole lot of things to do. If you got a slower pitcher and people get around her a little bit better. Maybe we can play a weaker right fielder, but get the better bat in the lineup. So there's a lot of different things you can do. So we want to adjust our lineup depending on how we foresee the game going. Is it going to be an offensive game? Do we have a chance of fielding a lot of balls if the other team keeps putting it in play? Is it a weak hitting team we're playing? So obviously defense is less important, so we have to adjust our lineup pregame based on those things. Then we're going to set our batting order based on who we decide needs to be in the game. Now, some factors that are pretty standard. Most of the time we know who's going to bat first. It's going to be usually one of your quicker players, someone that has a really high on-base percentage. A lot of times you see someone with a lot of speed in that spot. Most of the time you might see a slapper in there. I've done this for a while, and I've done a lot of different things with the leadoff spot. I've hit power in the leadoff spot. I've put speed in the leadoff spot. I put a great contact hitter in the leadoff spot. It just depends. Just because someone is fast does not make them a good leadoff hitter. Okay, let's just say that right now. They can be as fast as anybody else you've ever seen, but they have to get on base for it to be effective. The whole role of your leadoff hitter is to be a catalyst for your offense. Your two hitter needs to be someone that has the ability to get on, has a good on-base percentage, but your two hitter, in my opinion, needs to be somebody that can put the ball in play and move your runner. Okay? Now, it's an ideal situation if you have a really fast leadoff and your two hitter's got some speed as well, and if you can steal without wasting an out, then maybe bunt the runner over if they get caught up trying to look back the runner to second, whatever the case may be, maybe you got two people on. But your two hitter, in my opinion, needs to be someone that can move a runner, but also has a chance to produce a high on-base percentage. Three hitter's pretty standard. Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, you're going to put your three hitter. It's going to be like your best hitter overall contact-wise. Your four hitter is going to be your best power hitter. And then you go on from there. Your five hitter, in my opinion, should be a second power hitter. But one thing I think is really, really important, your best hitter, whether it's your three hitter or your four hitter, you don't want to take the bat out of their hand by putting people in front of them or behind them that can't get the job done. You want to protect your best hitter. Make them throw to your best hitter because they're worried about the person in front of them and the person behind them. If you just put your best hitter out there and there's nobody around them and they're not worried about who's in front of them or who's behind them, they're going to pitch around them and not worry about it because they're going to record the other outs. So always try to protect your best hitter. And most of the time, your best hitter is going to be in the 3 or 4 spot, depending on their power capability. A couple other things that I like to do and I've done traditionally. Your 6 hitter, in my opinion, is kind of an extension of your 2 hitter. Same kind of concept. And then I like to throw somebody in the 7 spot that has a lot of RBI potential. Maybe a second 3 hitter, second 4 hitter, someone that can really produce a lot of RBIs. I know a lot of people, usually your 9 hitter sometimes is your weakest hitter. I like to put my weakest hitter in the 8 spot because I like the 9 hitter to be someone that is an extension of the leadoff. Because if they get on, we've got top of the order. So we got 9, 1, 2 can move them, and then we got 3 and 4 coming up. So you want to set your batting order to try to be successful. The next thing you want to do is you want to utilize your substitutions. Once you set your order for the game, I always sit there and think, okay, here are my subs. Who's my first option as a pinch runner? Who's my second option as a pinch runner? And I know high school's got some different rules, and travel ball's got courtesy runners and everything else. College game, we use them as a pinch runner, they're burned, they're done. So these are things I have to think about. So if we have 8 subs available, we need to try to prioritize those 8 subs. Who are my first 2 pinch runners? Who are my first 2 pinch hitters? Who would I pinch hit for? Now sometimes you can predetermine that before a game because you know who your weaker hitters are going to be. But sometimes you won't know that until you're in the game and depending on how they've done that day against that pitcher. But you still need to prioritize your pinch hitters, your pinch runners. Some of the things could change. You may take a pinch runner, might be a really fast runner, they might be a slapper, and you might decide they need to be a pinch hitter. Maybe you see something in the defense, you need a catalyst, you need something to spark it, so you throw that extra slapper, that extra pinch runner, you make them a pinch hitter, and now they're your first option as a pinch hitter. So you have to be able to adapt during the game. But I always think that you need to try to prioritize your subs and have a plan going in so that you're ready to go and you're not thinking about it for 5 minutes and you have to waste the time out doing so. Okay? So pregame. We're going to set our lineup defensively based on what we think we can get away with and what the other team's capable of. Offensively, we want to set a batting order, and we want to try to be as, strategic as possible with that so that we can maximize our offensive opportunities. And then we want to utilize our subs. We want to know the order of the substitutions. We want to know how we want to use them and how we're going to be efficient in doing so. We don't want to waste time with that. All right, once you're in the game, you have to be able to adapt and make adjustments in the game. So we're going to assess the defense. First thing I've got there is reading the defense. When I say reading the defense, we're going to take what the defense gives us. Okay? Some of the things that I would say, this kind of ties into the second thing there, adjusting the offensive game plan on defensive alignment. Okay, I want to see what the defense is going to give me. So if I'm coaching third base, one of the first things I do, I always size up the outfielders and I size up the catcher. I want to see what kind of arms they have. I want to know if the ball's hit the left field, can I send the runner from second base? I want to know if that throw is going to get there. I want to know if I get a runner on first, can I steal? And if I can't steal, who in my lineup can steal? So I want to assess the defense and read that part of it. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to look to see what kind of arms the catchers have, what kind of arms the outfielders have, and then I'm going to go from there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at where the corners are playing. Are they shallow? Are they deep? If your corner's playing back near the bag, I'm going to bunt. If you're playing right on that bag, I'm going to bunt. Especially with my faster runners. I don't care if they're right-handed, I will bunt, and we will try to get a free base off of that. Okay? The other thing we can do there, if your third baseman's playing back next to third base, and I got a runner on third, I can squeeze. Because I got just as much of a chance of my runner getting to home plate before your third baseman gets to the ball. So you want to check your corners. Another thing, you want to look where the second baseman's at. How far are they playing to the middle? Are they playing closer to first, or are they playing closer to second? Now, if they're playing closer to second, that opens up the bunt option for me as well. Because once that first baseman crashes, that second baseman has a longer route to get to first base. So I want to see where they're at. I want to see where the shortstop's playing. When I have a runner on base, I want to see how far the shortstop's playing from second base. I want to see how far of a distance they have to cover to get to the ball on a throw for a steal. Okay? Now, if they're playing towards that 5-6 hole, that's a longer distance for them to cover. I've got more of a chance of my runner being safe now. Once you do get a runner on and you try to draw a throw, you want to see how they're covered. Does the shortstop cover? I would say a majority of the time, yes. Is the second baseman coming over and cover? Now, if the second baseman gets pulled away from their defensive spot to cover a steal, well, that opens up the whole right side. So now you've opened up the opportunities for a hit and run behind the runner. So you want to be able to make in-game adjustments based on their defensive alignment and reading the defensive players. Now, player personnel assessment, that kind of goes along with what I was talking about, sizing up some of the players. We mentioned the catcher, we mentioned the outfielders, but I would say overall. We talked about the third baseman playing back. Well, if they're playing back and their arm's not particularly strong, obviously you can bunt. If the shortstop can't make the play in the 5-6 hole, you better tell your runners if they hit in that 5-6 hole, run as hard as they can down that first baseline because they got a chance of being safe. Okay? So we want to assess their players, and we want to make our offensive strategy based on how they're going to cover things defensively. The next thing you want to do, and this one I'm not going to go into too much detail with because there's a lot of different strategies offensively, obviously. And we kind of talked about some stuff offensively based on where they're playing. But you also want to make your adjustments in the game at the plate. Don't not pay attention to what the pitcher's throwing. Don't trust your players solely to tell each other what's being thrown at the plate. You as a coach need to pay attention as well. I promise you that a lot of times your players don't see half the things you will see. Okay? So, you need to see what they're giving you. If you see that they start every batter off on the outside half, you better tell your players, she's throwing outside every first pitch. You need to take it away. If they're living on the outside and they're not coming in at all, you better tell your players to keep hitting the ball to right field until they come in on it. If they're living inside and not throwing you out, tell your players to turn on it hard and drive it down the third baseline until they bring it out a little bit. You've got to make those adjustments. That also goes along with making adjustments based on the umpire's strike zone. Okay? Now, the pitcher may not have anything to do with it. It could be the umpire. And I'm sure everybody in here has had some experience with an umpire at some point. I'm sure not all positive. I'm sure you've had some negative experiences. But you've got to be able to make adjustments based on the strike zone. That goes for you when you're on defense as well. Your pitcher has to make those adjustments as well. So you have to be able to assess the defense and what they're doing to try to stop your offense. And then you need to take advantage of the opportunities that they give you so that you can open up offensive opportunities to score. Okay, now we've kind of talked a little bit about this. Now we're talking about our defense. So my team's on defense. Everything I pretty much talked about before was their defense. Okay, now we're on defense. Obviously, we want to take what the umpire gives us. Your pitcher must adjust to the strike zone. If they don't adjust to the strike zone, you're going to be in for a long day. And I know 9 times out of 10, pitchers will argue and argue and argue with you about this and tell you the pitch is where it needs to be. Well, it very well may be. But it's not where the umpire wants it to be. So, you have to get it through your pitcher's head that they have to adjust to that umpire strike zone, not their strike zone. Because they all think they know where the ball should be. So, we have to take what the umpire gives us. They're giving us the corner, we got to challenge them on the corner. We've got to make sure that we're putting it where we have the greatest opportunity for there to be a called strike if there is no swing. Once we get ahead in the count, then we can expand that a little bit. But you have to get ahead before you can start to expand. We're going to take advantage of what a batter gives us. If you see flaws in their swing, expose them. If they're extremely far out on their front side and they're lunging at everything, go off speed. Go outside. Do all those things. If they bring their hands really far away from their body and they're casting their hands out, bust them in. If they got an uppercut swing, throw it right under their chin. They're never going to hit it. Okay? Take advantage of what the batter gives you. So as you're watching, make adjustments in your game plan with your pitching so that you, as a coach, can maximize the opportunities for your pitcher. Okay? Now, if you don't call pitches and you happen to have a catcher that is capable of calling pitches, make sure you are communicating these things to your catcher. Between innings, communicate these things to your catcher. That goes along with playing to a batter's tendencies. We want to play to their tendencies. Okay? If we know that this girl is a straight pull hitter, why would we throw her anywhere middle in? We want to throw it out. Okay? If they're a straight pull hitter, they're pulling their head off the ball every time, and they're looking down the left field line every time they swing, we don't want to put it middle in. We want to live on the outer half. Make them roll over that pitch, hit a weak ground ball to your infield, and let your infield clean it up. Okay? Don't give in to what their tendencies are. Make them uncomfortable in the box. Force them to do something different than what they normally do. So, adjusting your defensive strategy. Now, I did put it on here, but this also would go along with anything that you would do on defense. So if for some reason a team surprises you and they throw a bunch of slappers in the lineup, you're going to have to pinch in your infield. You're going to have to play a little bit different strategy with your infield. You may have to adjust a cut situation based on how you may have someone pulled in. You have to be able to make those adjustments and decisions quickly in a game, but you have to be able to recognize them and see what the other team is doing. Okay, we have different roles as coaches. We're going to talk about the third base coach first. The third base coach, I'm going to cheat a second because I'm going to make sure I didn't skip anything because we have to go back. I'll go back. All right, third base coach. Obviously, you're usually the one calling all the shots on offense if you're the third base coach. So we've kind of talked a little bit about how we would approach things based on the defense, how they're aligned, what we need to do. We talked a little bit ago, I gave you an example. If the second baseman's the one coming over to cover the bag on a steal, and you see that second baseman pulling away, leaving that hole on the right side, well, that's a perfect opportunity to call a hit and run. Now, I'll be honest with you perfectly, I'm not a big fan of the hit and run, because most of the time it doesn't really work out in my favor. So it's something I usually would not call. I would just call a steal and let the batter hit. But you need to know when to call a play, when to recognize bunts. Like when is a good time to call a bunt? We talked a second ago about reading their corners, seeing where their corners are. Now, if I go to somebody's field and I see their first baseman has 2 knee braces on, I'm bunting down the first base line. And I'm going to tell my players before the start of the game, bunt down the first base line. If I see they have a left-handed pitcher, we're going to make them come off that rubber and turn all the way around in that circle to make that throw to first. So we're going to bunt it that little area between first and pitcher. So they have to turn all the way around. Okay? Now, I doubt you'll see a left-handed third baseman, so we won't use that as an example. But you want to recognize things that you see. I've actually seen a lot of teams in the past, probably not so much within the last 6 years, but I did see some teams probably 10 years ago. It was really popular. People would hold the first baseman and not crash the first baseman on bunts. They would use the pitcher to cover the whole right side and the third baseman to cover the left side. Not a really good strategy if you ask me. But people did it. So when we saw that, we would make the pitcher field. If you can make the pitcher field as much as possible, do it. They spend 95% of the game throwing underhand. If you can make them throw overhand, a lot of bad things happen. I personally cringe every time one of our pitchers goes to throw the ball to first base. I'm not a fan of it. In practice, I make them jog halfway and toss it to first. I make it a habit because every time they wind up and throw overhand, I'm just foreseeing something bad happening. Okay? And I also have a pretty strict rule. I don't like them throwing anywhere but first. I'm not a big fan of them turning around and throwing to second or anywhere else. I just want them getting out. We'll sacrifice the runner moving up. Let's take the out. Okay? So, we got to know when to call those plays. We have to know what the limitations are of the defense. We talked earlier too about knowing the outfielder's arms. How quick can that outfielder get to that gap? How quick can they get the ball in? And you're going to figure it out quick. You're going to see him make one throw and you're going to know. You're going to know. Okay? Now, the other thing you need to recognize as a third base coach, pay attention to the field. I didn't put that on here. But you need to pay attention to the field. When you go to somebody else's field, obviously you're going to know how your field plays. But when you go to somebody else's field, look at how deep the fence is. Look at how short the grass is. Look at how well maintained the infield is. Look at all those things. See how far home plate is from the backstop. Because if you got a runner on third and there's only 10 feet from home plate to the fence, you may not want to send it. Okay? But if there's 20 feet, or some crazy cases, there's like 30 feet because it's an old converted baseball field or something like that, send your runner. See if they have any padding on the backstop. See, after one pass ball, how it bounces off. You got to check all those things. When I coached high school, the field I coached at, we had dead ball area because we had so much foul territory. So a unique situation we had was we had dead ball lines. You had your foul lines, 20 feet over from that, you had dead ball lines, extending all the way to the fence. So if you're a visiting coach and you go into that situation, you want to be able to tell your players how to play it. Don't catch the ball and then run into the dead ball area. Now the runner gets an extra base. So you have to be able to know those things. And those are things that you need to constantly remind your players throughout the game. If you just say it one time at the beginning of the game, I promise you it did not stick with at least one individual. There's going to be someone that didn't catch it. I could tell my team right now practice tomorrow is at 12 o'clock. And I guarantee you I'll get a text. What time is practice again tomorrow? It happens. Somebody is always not paying attention. Okay? It doesn't get any better when they get to college, trust me.
Do you need a softball bat? Do you want to save $30? Softballjunk.com is offering an additional $30 discount off the price of all non-sale softball bats on their website. That's right, $30. So the next time you buy a bat, go to softballjunk.com and enter the code FPTV30 during checkout, and wham! You just put a cool $30 in your pocket.
Welcome back. Now that last short clip, that was my daughter Amanda, and she was telling you about my website, softballjunk.com. Make sure that you wrote down the code number she gave you. In case you don't have it, it's FPTV30. Because anytime you buy a bat at softballjunk.com on my website, you can enter that code at checkout and save yourself $30. And you can use that code over and over and over and over. It's a really great deal. You just need to remember the code. And that code was FPTV30. Now, if you enjoy the show, all I ask is you at least check out my website, softballjunk.com. The next time you're looking for softball bats, gloves, any kind of softball equipment. If I offer a competitive price, well, have a buy from me and show some support for the show, for what I'm doing here. It's a great way to support what I do, and it really doesn't cost you any extra. Now, I hope you enjoyed David's clinic, and please tell your friends about the Fastpitch TV show. That's this show. So until next time, this is Gary Leland saying goodbye, and thanks for watching. Oh, and next week you can watch and see part 2 of the clinic.
This show is a member of the Fastpitch TV network. See all our shows and blogs at www.fastpitch.tv.